Hello, my name's Jade and today we will be discussing Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. This is the fourth book in the Throne of Glass series. I feel like the colour of this book isn't translating very well. Like in the viewfinder it looks really orangey red. IRL it's quite a pinky red, and my lipstick it was looking really red on camera as well. And IRL, yeah, you can see on the lipstick it's much more like a purpley pinky, like it definitely has red in there but it's not a straight up red, it's a purpley pinky kind of colour. But on my mouth it's just looking red to me. I have videos on all of the books leading up to this one, all four of them, including The Assassin's Blade, the prequel. I think this one's easily my favourite so far. It has a very different tone to the other ones. This one feels much more grown up. It feels a little bit less YA, there's much more swearing, and just the fantasy world feels a little bit, I won't say grimmer, but it feels more like a fantasy like you'd watch on an adult TV show. I don't think that particularly swayed my opinion. I just think this one was the strongest one that we've had so far. All of the things were happening. It was very exciting. So I'd give Queen of Shadows, I think I'd give it like a 9 out of 10. There's some things with the writing that I'm not the biggest fan of. I just wasn't blown away in the same way I would be with like a 10 out of 10. I reserve my 10 out of 10s for things that I would like say are phenomenal, and this is fantastic. It's amazing, it's great, it's wonderful. It did knock my socks off quite a few times. I did stand there motionless for quite a few times. I just wouldn't label it as phenomenal in my book. It's a good one. It's the best one yet, I think. I'm very excited to carry on. I don't have any particularly strong feelings of the cover of this one. What sword is she holding though? Because I can't figure it out. It must be... Oh, is that a spoiler? Okay, I'll talk about it in the spoilery section. Colours are fine. It's, of the whole series, it's probably one of my favourite covers. I think that's everything for the non-spoiler section. If you've yet to read Queen of Shadows, I recommend you leave now. Read the book, come back, you know the drill. Goodbye if you've yet to read Queen of Shadows. The sword. Damaris is the only one I can think of. And I thought Damaris, oh I can't remember his name. I can never remember his name. Elena's husband, the King of Terrasen. I thought it was his sword. This all came up in Throne of Glass. This all came up so long ago and it's still relevant. The way she's built the world, all of the little seeds about like the Volg and the ancient wars and Elena and Brannon and all of this malarkey is talked about in Throne of Glass in the very beginning, before we even know where we're going. We don't have a clue. Like, we know that we need to take out the king and that's about it. And the way she's interwove the things with the Assassin's Blade throughout this series, it's so well done. I love this series. I think it's one of the strongest, best series I have ever read. So clever when you look at it from the big picture. So well done. And I'm so excited to see where we go, because so many big things happen in this one that, because we've been kind of trucking along slowly in verse 3, I thought some of the stuff that ended up happening in this one was going to happen later on. Like, I thought Dorian and Aelin becoming king and queen, that would be like last book material, is what I thought was going to happen. I thought the king was a bigger picture. I didn't imagine him dying in this one. I thought he was going to be like the last book, victory, we kill him. But no, it's more about the Volg. Like, the king doesn't even matter anymore. Like, the way this series has developed and matured over time, it's so well done. So Damaris, we think this is Damaris, right? Because it does have a tiny little eye on there, but I imagine the eye bigger, like with the wings and stuff. I was like, is this Wind Cleaver? But Wind Cleaver is plain. At one point Aelin just had Damaris. Like, I didn't really understand when Chaol gave it to her and why it belonged to her. Like, I assumed it would be Doran's sword because it was his ancestor, but was it a gift from Brannon, so therefore Aelin can now reclaim it? Dorian doesn't have a cool sword, and I feel like Aelin doesn't need to. So chapter 1 is from Dorian's perspective, and we kept getting these little flashes of Dorian throughout the book, and it hurt every single time. There wasn't a time where I wasn't like, ow, this hurts. I really missed Dorian in this one. Like, I know I've harped on about how I was always team Chaol, but I love Dorian. I best get enough of him in Empire of Storms to fill the Dorian hole that was created in this one. Speaking of Chaol and Aelin reunite. And he was the one that had been dealing the deal with Arobynn, and when that happened, I gasped. So many more gasps to come in this. And he kept going back to Arobynn, even though Aelin told him not to trust Arobynn. Like, Chaol doesn't trust Aelin anymore. I think come the end of the book he does, and they kind of regained each other's trust throughout the process of this book. Not necessarily, it was like a kind of unspoken thing, like they just kind of moved on and moved past it and started working together again, which I like. I like that it wasn't a big thing that they had to sit down and be like, right, we need to figure this out. But they have that argument when they first reunite about how Aelin had been off with her Fae Prince learning magic, and he spoke about it so condescendingly, and I was like, was this not what you sent her to do? Was this not what... Why is it bad that she can now have her magic? And, like, I don't understand. Why are you fighting? I don't understand where you're coming from, Kale. What are you talking about? And their arguments throughout this whole thing it was just so frustrating. I just wanted to, like, bang their heads together, like, you're better than this. We're on the same team, and I think one of the problems is that Kale kept posing it as if they weren't on the same team. As if, because they're natural enemies, they had to be enemies, which obviously Dorian doesn't feel that way at all. Aelin destroyed the vaults. He was like, oh, she was probably just in a pissy mood and so decided to take it out on all those people. Like, she's pretty ruthless. And Lena, she's dead and gone. Like, Aelin is here and Aelin is different, and she's like, Selena was feisty and she backtalked and she was mouthy and she was vicious, and at times, like, she had no remorse. But Aelin is like a whole step above that. She is very intense. And she, like, now that she has all this power and she knows that she can order these people around, she just orders them around left, right and centre. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I do, because Selena was my favourite character. And now Aelin's so different that I'm like, oh, Selena, where'd you go? Like, it's a believable and it's a good progression and it's an interesting character arc and it's all very clever on Sarah's part. It just takes getting used to, and I think in the end I've gotten used to it, and what she's doing for the greater good for the most part, I think. But I was still nonetheless very mad at Kale for having said that about her. Like, I don't understand where this mass of distrust came from. He was the one that sent her off in the end of Crown of Minute. Oh my god, it's been so long since they were together. What was he expecting of her? Why did his opinion of her change so greatly? And Aelin finds out about Dorian, and she gave up on him really quickly. Like, I understand that she thinks he's gone. I guess she thought what she was doing was being merciful, like helping Dorian out by killing him, because she'd gone through what they'd gone through, but she went through it and came out. And I know that, like, she's half fae and she has fire magic, and that's directly from Mala's power, and she's all powerful, I get it. Dorian has rule magic, which may not, I don't know if it's equally as powerful, but it's pretty powerful because he can do all kinds of crap that Aelin can't do. And he's, like, why could he, if she could get out the other end of it, why can he not? I wanted her to at least accept that there might be another way. And she promised Kale she would, and then she didn't. She hesitated for like a second. Lysandra comes up again. We haven't seen her since The Assassin's Blade, and her relationship is quite different from the one we saw in The Assassin's Blade. I really didn't like her in The Assassin's Blade. She was just really annoying. I don't think there's anything specific. And, like, she would purposefully antagonize Selena, but then I guess Selena would also purposely antagonize Lysandra. I really liked their growing relationship and their growing friendship, and it kind of, I think, healed the whole Nehemia wound a little bit. There was that time when Aelin first found out that she was a shapeshifter, and she was instantly like, is this like Nehemia again? Is she lying to me? But ultimately she's like, well, no, I lied to her too, and she was just doing it to save herself. She wasn't like doing it she wasn't doing it maliciously. And they kind of realized that the reason that they hate each other is because, like, men put them against each other. And I loved their relationship, and I'm excited to watch it grow even further. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. And she warns Aelin, Lysandra warns Aelin that it's a trap with Arobin. I didn't understand why she ever took the deal. Like, did she need, I guess she did need Arobin's help. Couldn't she have gone to Kale? Couldn't Kale have done it? Like, Kale would have helped her if she'd gone to him. I was just so on guard. Like, after everything we've been through, why are we back here in his debt? I really loved hearing about Wesley and how he tried to save Selena from Endovir, essentially. Well, everything that happened with Wesley was really sad. Sad that we're not going to see him, because he was such a small part of the Assassin's Blade. Perrington orders Valg witch babies, like by sewing a bit of stone into them or something. And it turns out that witches are actually descended from the Valg. No wonder they're so heinous. They are directly descended from the Valg. And the Crocken witches are more like the Fae because they're Fae and Valg, which I wonder if that would therefore mean that the Iron Teeth are more Valg than Fae, because they are a lot tougher. And obviously everything the Crocken said in the last one about how witches, they're made evil. They weren't born evil, these Iron Teeth witches, they're made evil. I wonder if, because obviously we're gonna end up killing Grandma Blackbeak, or at least overthrowing her or something, and I can't wait for it to happen. And I wonder if witchlings will then be not made evil, if we're just going to allow them to have emotions, like under Manon's rule. I can't wait for that to happen. And our witchlings, like how they come to be isn't clear. Like Astrid nearly had a witchling, but it would have been half mortal, but then there's no male witchlings, so how do they get pregnant? Like, can a witch have a baby with a mortal? Is that how it works? And the witchness is just so strong that they're born a witchling. It's also said about how they're female as a gift from the three-faced goddess. We also learned that Brannon sent the witches away to the wastes because... Did it say something there about how they were quite malicious and not to be trusted? I'm assuming because of the Vogue. I can't remember. Astrid and Manon fight a lot throughout this one as well, which again, much like Kale and Aelin, I just wanted to shake them. I mean, Astrid's whole thing is with the witchlings, how the witchlings are so sacred, and that came up so much that it made sense that she had this backstory with witchlings. And again, it sets up for witchlings in the future to then be not made evil, to be allowed to feel emotions and stuff. So much so that Astrid was replaced by Sorrel, and she became third, and she even nearly got replaced as being third or something. Like, it was just constant. And you could see where Astrid's coming from. The whole book, I was just waiting for Manon to defy her grandmother because it was so well set up in Air Fire. And it felt like she backtracked a little bit in this one. Like, she lost her human emotion a little bit. She became harder. Like, at the very end of Air Fire, she's like, yeah, I'll do what the king wants me to do. And I was like, no, we made all this progress. And it feels like that again. She's just, like, mindlessly doing what her grandmother wants. She gives Parrington the yellow legs, and it was awful to read about what happened to them. And so I can't wait for it to finally happen, for it to finally, like, she's there, she's ready to do it. She just needs to do it. And I think she's gonna kind of work undercover for a little while, and I can't wait to see how I'm assuming she's eventually gonna, like, join our gang some way, somehow. I'm assuming through Dorian. I can't wait to watch it play out. I'm so excited. I love the Manon sections. They just read so differently and they're so interesting. Not that I necessarily am like Manon. We still have some ways to go. A lead came up again, and I was waiting for it after hearing Air Fire. Like, I knew she'd be alive. It was sad to hear about what happened to her as well, but she has witch blood in her. So Marion was a witch, and I'm assuming she was Iron Tooth. Wasn't she an Iron Tooth witch as well, not a Crocken witch? Because I'm assuming if she was a Crocken witch, Manon would have been repulsed. What are the Crocken witches? We don't really know. What's the difference between them? But she has red blood. She doesn't have blue blood. So, like, was her mother, like, half witch or something? I'm just really interested in wondering if we're going to learn a little bit more about that at some point. I would love to. We have this scene where we freed Adian, and it's so cool the way she was, like, disguised as a dancer. The audiobook, because I've been listening to these via audiobook, and Elizabeth Evans does a fantastic job at narrating. Like, I can't imagine reading it without her, because the way just, like, she pronounces everything so crisply, and it has that, like, medieval feeling to it, and the way she does the voices is so great, and this section was done really well. And Nesrin essentially saves Dorian's life because, as I said, like, Aelin hesitated for a little bit, and when talking to Kale later, she said, like, yeah, like, I hesitated a little bit, and that could have cost me a ton, and don't you realise? And they have another stupid argument. I mean, the problem is, we're reading this knowing that Dorian's in there still, so you can understand where Aelin's coming from, but I know that Dorian's probably not going to die. So it was frustrating. I really liked Nesrin. I like her and Kale together, I've decided. I think they're good for each other because she's so tough as well. Like, they work, I think. And I'm hoping that they're going to be more vulnerable together. I like them together. I ship it. I hope they're endgame. And I hope we get to learn more about Nesrin because we don't know a ton about her right now. I loved reading about Adian fangirling about Rowan. It turns out, like, him and his cadre are, like, a big deal, and there's stories about them. And then, of course, Rowan rocks up, and I wasn't anticipating this. I thought, like, maybe after we got magic free, like, in this, like, I thought we'd get magic free in this book, he'd be in Empire of Storms, but no, he just rocks up halfway through. He decides that can't wait any longer, and, well, there was the Lorcan thing as well, but I wasn't anticipating that. And we learn that Gabriel is Adian's dad, which makes sense, and I'm assuming they're going to be reunited, or something's gonna happen there. And now this caused me confusion, because they all act like it's a really big deal, and, like, Aelin's like, yeah, this changes nothing to me, Adian, and he thinks about how Aelin's mortal while he is immortal, and, like, it changes things for him. Like, we already knew he was a demi-fae, though, because in the last one we were talking about his senses and stuff all the time. Like, we knew he was a demi-fae, so I understand why it was such a big deal, because there was no new information, but the way he was contemplating it made it sound like it was new information. Or is he a full fae? Was his mother fae? I'm really confused. Does he know that Aelin... He knows that Aelin is demi-fae as well, so why is he immortal while she is mortal? Like, people kept referring to Aelin as mortal, but surely if she just shifts into a fae form and stays like that, she'll be immortal, because she can shift to a fae. She just shifts to a human. Like, that is her shit. Like, why is she then mortal and Aiden's immortal? I'm so confused. And then he finds out about the blood oath. And my heart, because he's been so loyal to her throughout this whole thing. And even when he came back to her after their fight, he was so loyal. He's so loyal. He's done everything because of her. And the one thing he wanted was to give her the blood oath. And it broke my heart reading about it. And she was so harsh on him. She just started yelling at him because he got mad. Because this was his one thing that was getting him through all of his life up until this point. And like, Aedion and Rowan are both so protective of Aedion, and she can look after herself. It's not necessary. And I think Rowan understands that to a point, but where he has the blood oath to him and he's like a male fae and they're so territorial and stuff, I guess. He's still, I don't want to say babies her, but, and like Rowan looks down. He doesn't look down on Aedion, but he kind of orders Aedion around at first and like forces him to submit to his queen. And I just don't like how power hungry I don't like how she just orders them around. Like, just because she can doesn't mean she should. Like, Aedion, you can trust Aedion. I don't know. I just feel really bad for Aedion. He's one of my new favorite characters. I really loved Aedion. Kaltain shows up, and she used to have fire magic, but now it's been turned into this shadow fire, which sounded horrific. And I don't know if it's mentioned in the book, but just imagine an army full of people who could wield shadow fire. I'm so scared because they're so powerful. The Volg. Like, this is going to be a fight and a half. And going back to Aelin being demanding, the whole Lorcan situation when she set up that trap, which was cleverly done, albeit, she counted on Rowan saving her, and then when they got back she yelled at him, ordered him to never do it again. I don't know if she did that knowing that he will in fact do it again, but like, she was counting on him to save her there. Like, if he hadn't shown up, she'd be dead. Aelin, just, she's such an interesting character. She's very flawed. And Lorcan's like this over 500-year-old, like one of the oldest faes other than Maeve. Like, how old is Maeve? The writing. We go to see Arabin with the Volg that Aelin's collected, and Rowan and Aelin have a full-on conversation with their eyes, and this had come up before, but like, this point I was like, how are they saying all this with their eyes? Like, about how she wasn't wearing any underwear, you know the conversation I'm talking about. Was it believable? And characters often see emotions in other characters' eyes. It's just it's cliche. That's not how eyes work. Eyes don't give that information away. And she has a couple of metaphors that come up a lot, like the asp one. We've seen it repeatedly, I think, since Crown of Midnight. And new ones come up, eyes lined with silver, which I can only imagine is tears. I don't know, because the writing is really solid for the most part. It's really good. It's really interesting. And then we just have these little cliches, these little like metaphors that are either repeated constantly or don't make a ton of sense. Oh, I feel so bad saying this, because other than this, the writing's so good. There's just little things. It's a little frustrating because other than that, the writing's so solid. I love the fact that Rowan had put on the oil that Arabin had sent. We saw a more humorous side to Rowan, I think, in this one, which I really enjoyed. And I was so sure that the necklace, the Terracin necklace, I can't remember what it's called right now, that it was a trap, because she was so like not on guard. And we've been warned so many times about Arabin, and he's not done anything wrong yet. He's not manipulated anyone yet, so it's coming. It has to be coming. And then he put the ring on her finger, and the gasp that came out of my mouth obviously ended up being nothing, but for the however many pages that I was believing it, I was scared because we've seen Arabin before, and we've seen the kind of messed up stuff he does, and this felt like such a small thing, and then he was fairly easily killed. And I didn't imagine, after the Assassin's Blade, I was so like ready for him to die and for the showdown, and it felt kind of underwhelming because the ring was a fake. It was such an easy trap for them to lay. And it wasn't even Aiden that ended up being the one that killed him, although it did feel right. Like, Lysandra, she needed that. But it does feel a little bit anticlimactic, so I wonder if anything's going to come of that again, or if it's just done. I mean, it's fine, it works. And of course, Aegon switches the will and gets all of the money for her new court and stuff. So that's a nice final FU to Arabin. And at some point amidst all this, Aelin and Rowan have that kind of awkwardness on the roof. And if he needed to explain why he was doing it, because the way their romance has been building up has been so steady for me. Like, I saw it building throughout Airfire. Like, they're slowly coming to be friends, and then from friends, like, there are little things every now and then, and it felt like something that they both were feeling and developing, and they just weren't kind of admitting it to themselves. And they started to in this one. And it just felt really bad for her when he rejected her, because she really took it to heart. And even Adrian heard it and was like, what's he doing? Oh, and then we have the reveal about Erewhon. Is that how it's pronounced? I can't remember now. Erewhon, the Volg king, and how he was buried in Morath. And when I read that, I just like the gasp, and I just like stood back for a second. I was like, they're dead. They're all dead. They're dead. What's the point of even trying? They're all dead. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead. Now we know that it's Barrington. Just the fight, the battle that's gonna go down. It's gonna be so epic. I'm so excited for it. Oh, and it was the Eye of the Elena. The Eye of the Elena. And it was the Eye of Elena that put Erewhon to sleep, so it felt like it needed more relevance than just like saving people, and it has more relevance. We haven't seen Elena since the first book. I wonder if she's going to come back to play. I bet she will in the end. Roland comes up. I was waiting for him too, because we knew he was in Morath, and he's just like gone. And Manon ultimately kills him, which was sad, I guess. He seems like an okay guy. Wasn't great, but I don't think anyone quite deserves that. And that's when we learn about Manon's eyes, like the gold eyes, the black eyes with the gold flecks. Like we knew this was a big deal, and like the Iron Teeth witches knew that the eyes meant something, like it was highly regarded. But they weren't affected by Roland's abilities. They weren't tortured like the other ones were. And we later learn out that it's the eyes of the Volg king. What does this mean? Does this mean they have a stronger connection to the Volg, that they have more Volg DNA in them, or that they're directly descended from the king himself? Obviously, I imagine we'll end up using this to our advantage. I'm excited to learn more about that. That was cool. Lorcan claims that he's not working for Maeve, he's trying to save his queen, but he's also kind of defying her, and I wonder if with the rest of Rowan's cadre, if this will come up and if they'll kind of defy her, but also it's for her own good, like if we'll be able to twist it like that. The ring, I knew it was going to be more than just a ring. Like, the Val can't affect you if you have the ring on. I want to know how and why that works, like where it came from. And like the way it came into play with Dorian was really interesting, that she put it on his finger and he starts freaking out. I think Lorcan has the ring now, so I wonder if he's going to come up again. It feels like we're not done with him. And I wonder how Maeve will get involved, because she will some way, somehow, inevitably get involved. I wonder if she's going to team up with the Vol King some way, somehow. She's power hungry, and the way she's always described like around darkness, and obviously that's the Volg's whole thing. They're dark and evil and bad. Oh, and when Rowan gave him the fake ward key, I really thought he was giving him the ward key, and he was just so in love with Aelin, and I was really scared for a second. Like, I was thinking it might be the fake, but I didn't believe it. Like, I thought he actually gave him the ward key, because the way Lorcan was twisting his emotions about Aelin was so clever and manipulative and horrifying. The king took Lysandra, and we have this meeting in the forest, and all of the players are coming together, and it was so exciting gearing up towards it, and then reading it. Like, Manon's and Dorian's conversation was so tense, and there was the weapon, the mirror tower things that are just going to amplify the Volg's power. Again, if they get those working, we're dead. It was just such a cool section. This section I think might be one of my favorite sections. Manon and Aelin's fight was so cool. Oh, why did she have to say that to Manon about Baba Yellowlegs? Was it necessary, Aelin? Was it? And then they have the fight, and it was awesome, and Aelin saves Manon, and then Manon owed Aelin, and it was so cool. And I can see them having a really cool friendship, actually, should they get past the rivalry. I can see it is setting up pretty well, because they're both kind of accepting each other's presence more and more, it feels like. Oh, and then we see Fleetfoot only for a little bit, but we saw him. He's still around. I can only like imagine the very end, like Rowan and Aelin and Fleetfoot together in Terrason. And then of course we have Astrian's story, which was devastating, and that queen needs to go. The grandmother needs to go. I'm hoping we kill her. That would be satisfying. I'm hoping she like undermines Manon and Manon like proves her wrong and then kills her. Although I can also see what I originally predicted. The blue blood heir, I can't remember her name now, Petra I think, and Manon teaming up together to fight with Dorian, and then Grandma, Blackbeak and Iskra teaming up with the Bolg. I really love Astrian and Manon's friendship, the way like Astrian was screaming at Manon, and that's the reason why Aelin saved Manon, because she has friends and love in her life. That was kind of what was so hard about Manon and Astrian's fighting so much, is because from Air of Fire you can tell that Astrian deeply cares for Manon, and obviously Manon doesn't quite feel the same way because she doesn't feel emotions. She's getting there though, like they hug at the end and it was nice, and I'm excited for there to be a stronger relationship now that they like trust each other, I think, better. I really love Astrian. And it was really interesting the way that she just kept fighting against Manon. Like, she's not afraid of her, and I think that's why she makes a good second, because she'll say what needs to be said. Like, she doesn't back down from Manon. She doesn't just, like, submit power to her mindlessly. And I guess that was the whole problem between them, is that we were all waiting for Manon to defy her grandmother. And she just kept not... Even the 13 had that meeting with her where we were like, we're not sure we should give him a Blackbeak coven. Oh, and Elide was locked up this whole time, and she just thought she was forgotten, and she kept thinking that no one's going to come for her. It's like, no, Manon will come for you. And then she didn't have time, really, because she had to go do something else. I can't remember. Of course, she eventually came, and when she found out, she was furious, and she's just like flying around everywhere trying to find her. It was so great. And then Caltaine comes along, and she sacrifices herself, and she destroys all of the poor tortured pregnant witches and the creature babies and the whole third of Morath. She like kills herself in the process, which I think obviously is probably for the greater good, because if they find her they would have just tortured her and killed her anyway. But it was sad, and I loved kind of reading about her taking power back, and Caltaine's arc was really interesting, and it's sad that she died, but I love that we hurt them in the process. Oh, Manon was busy writing the message for Aelin, and I love the fact that Manon didn't tell the king about them, and she kind of felt like she really paid Aelin back between like not telling the king and saying that they killed the rebels, and warning Aelin that Dorian's still alive, and Elide, everything she did for Elide. They're even now. That's a little bit worrying, but I'm sure hopefully the next time they reunite it'll be on different circumstances. And then we have the whole end and the plan and everything. I was so sure something was going to go wrong with, was it the Hellfire? It didn't, thank the Lord. Ress and Brillo were killed, and they were on the wall though, and that was upsetting. I was really upset about Ress because I really loved him, and I was hoping he was going to be like a part of their court, and he was just so much fun, and he'd been there from the beginning, and now he's dead, and that was sad. And then walking together, Chaol and Aelin into the castle, and like they said, it not even really been a year since they went through the first time with Selena in chains and Chaol leading her, and then this time it's Aelin leading Chaol on chains, and the full circle of it was so nice. Although by my maths it has been a year, because she had a birthday in Throne of Glass and she had another birthday in Air of Fire, so it'd been over a year. Maybe I read that wrong. Selena was going through one last time. It was so cool. Oh my goodness. And the king was like, oh yeah, I know who you are. And the whole section was just so much fun to read. Oh, and Chaol was gonna sacrifice himself. I was so sad. I'm so glad he didn't die. Well, I obviously know that Chaol doesn't die because Tower of Dawn, but I was worried. And it was so nice that he was gonna sacrifice himself, because Chaol is such a selfless person. He's so giving. He's just also so like, he has his guard up all the time, and I don't know if it's because he was the captain of the guard. I think that's kind of instilled this in him, to like trust no one, because he wants to keep his people safe at the end of the day. And he sacrificed himself for Aelin and Dorian, which like it felt so right for him to do. And like there were so many little nuances, like them walking through the gates and him sacrificing himself, and then more to come at the end that was like throwbacks to the first books, and it was so nice. It was kind of like closing the end of this section of their lives, and it felt so right. Lorcan had given the Wardhounds Rowan's scent, like he had betrayed them, and that was so horrifying. And I was like, they can't, like, how but what are we gonna do? Like, they're dying here. To describe someone coming in, like, helping the fight, and I knew it was Lorcan, and it was. He said that it was because of Aedion. He didn't know Aedion was involved, and then when he found out that it was Gabriel's son, he couldn't do that to Gabriel because they're still brothers. Like, in the way that Rowan and Lorcan used to be brothers. Like, there's history there. It has to be that Maeve's gonna die, and then Rowan and his cadre are then gonna go and work for Aelin. Either that or the new... Like, I'm assuming Aelin is going to become Queen of the Fae, I guess. She's probably going to be the one to kill Maeve. And so then all of the cadre are going to work for Aelin. It's such a complex and interesting relation. Sarah J. Maas does complex and interesting relationships so well. And then Lysandra came, and she came as a ghost leopard, which is what they talked about earlier. It was so cool. Aedion had a little bit of a thing for Lysandra, and she kept talking about how it'd be like kissing Aelin, so it's weird. Although... Lysandra also, like, gave some hints that she wasn't against that. So... maybe something between her and Aedion. Of course, they do free magic, so I'm so excited for Emperor of Storms, them getting to use the magic. It's gonna be fun. And like reading Manon roaring in joy was so great. And then we have Dorian and Aelin, and he stabbed her and she put the ring on him. And then hearing that Chaol had died, that the king had killed Chaol, is what brought Dorian back. Their bromance is so good. I'm so excited. Well, we're not really going to see them together, are we? Because Chaol's going to go off to the southern continent. I can't wait. I'm assuming Kingdom of Ash for them to be reunited and to see them together. It's going to be amazing. And then Dorian and Aelin stand together and they release all of the magic, and it's beyond epic and amazing and wonderful. And it does set up that they have a special connection. Like, I don't think their endgame. I still think Aelin and Rowan are endgame, and especially now that we have stuff going on between Dorian and Manon, I really suggest that. But they definitely have some kind of connection, and I don't know if it's because he's like a king and she's a queen, or if it comes back to like Elena and her husband and Brannon and the history. It's interesting though, and like obviously all the old players, and now we have Dorian, we have Aelin, and we have all of the old players again. That, I don't know, but they definitely have a connection, and I love that. I love their friendship. And then of course we have the City of Heavenly Fire situation, where the king wasn't really evil. We thought the king was controlling Parrington, but it wasn't. Parrington was controlling the king, and like it said in the first one that they're both wearing the rings, but like, we never second guess why. Like, I assume the king was drawing power from the Volg, and that's why he wore the ring. And like, at one point it was mentioned that he was like a creature in the sewers. And I was questioning, like, why is he able to do that? Now it makes sense. Harrington was controlling the king. Like, I didn't think about that, but it was set up so it made so much sense. And that he abolished magic to save Dorian, and it was so sad. He was like, my son, and he seemed to like, I believed him 100%, because why would he be lying? And then Dorian killed him anyway, which I guess is what he wanted, but still, it was really sad. It hurt my heart a little bit. And he shattered the glass castle, which obviously is a big symbolic movement, and then Aelin coming out and telling the people that the king's dead, and very exciting stuff. So Chaol is now paralysed from the waist down, gonna go to the southern continent to get healed. Obviously there's a whole book, so I can only imagine what goes down. I mean, Aelin told him that we need allies, so I'm assuming he's gonna make friends there and bring them back with him. Nezrin's gonna go with him. She's also temporary captain of the guard, and Dora's like, we've never had a female captain of the guard. It seems like time to make new traditions, change the rules. Loved that. I think she'd make a great captain of the guard. Lysandra is made a lady. Like, she had to come to Terrason with us. They have that meal together where Dorian's like, I don't want to impose, and Aelin tells him to sit down, and they're all together, and it's really nice. Chaol and Dorian and Aelin have that conversation where she tells him, like, we need allies down there, and Chaol looks at Dorian and he gives a very slight nod, not to anger Aelin. It was just the three of them sitting down having a conversation. It was so reminiscent of Throne of Glass when it was just the three of them, and it like they all said their goodbyes and they were talking about reading material. It was just so nice, and it was so reminiscent of Throne of Glass, and it felt so right to end this chapter here because it was the end of this chapter. I loved it at the end that Aedian's so excited to go home, and he like threw the water on them, and Lysandra chased him out as a ghost leopard, and off they go. They're in Terrason, and it was such a nice end. And Elide, she's going to Terrason too, and she's gonna give Selena Saradotian the thing that was in Kaltain's arm and a ring or something. I was really feeling sorry for Dorian because he was left all alone. Chaol's going as well, and he is like haunted by what happened. And then we have Manon waving at him. Well, she didn't wave at him, he waved at her from Abraxos, she's like watching over him. So I'm interested to see how that relationship is going to build, because I'm assuming it will. I don't know how I feel about that, because Dorian is this little puppy that I don't trust with Manon. Honestly, I don't. She's got too far to come for me to trust him with her, although he's got quite a hard heart, Dorian. He's quite resilient. Like, given her nature, like, I think he'd be understanding of her being kind of cold and brutal and be patient enough to teach her the ways of feeling emotion. We'll see. I don't know. I just don't see the dynamic. I don't see how it's going to play out. And at long last, Aelin Ashrivigarthinius was home. Like, they always end with such a strong line in these books. At one point, I think it was Kale, like, saying he wasn't afraid, and I was like, oh, so pumped for Empire of Storm. Where are we going now? Because all of the big things that we needed to do from Heir of Fire, and all the big things that I had been waiting to happen, because I knew they were going to happen, like the king dying, Dorian and Aelin being crowned, although they technically haven't been crowned. I can see potential resistance being there and like trouble in the courts. I'm sure we're going to navigate that in Empire of Storms, which I'm glad we're going to see that happening, and it's not just like they get crowned at the end of Kingdom of Ash and we don't get to see it. Like, it's much more interesting this way. I'm glad it is this way. And obviously magic's back now. A lot of the big things have happened. It's just the Vogue, but we have 2 books worth to come. I'm so pumped to see it, because I have no idea, other than I'm predicting there being a really big epic battle in Kingdom of Ash, and I so hope there is. And that is everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing morning, afternoon, evening / night. My name's Jade. I hope I see you again next time. Goodbye!